All right, so after you finish your rooster or your frog, you're going to reset and you're going to start working on your color wheel. For those of you who have the beginner level color wheel, you're just going to use the photocopied version. The substitute has these. Please go get them. Make sure you put your name and your student number on them, and then using your notes, go and label every single one. So I just have the last two to do, orange and yellow orange. Those of you who actually label this and write it out, A, it's practice, and you know you're going to have to use it on the exam and our quizzes, but B, you are 3,000% less likely to mess up if you do this. Each one of the rings has a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. 1 is the pure color, 2 is a tint, 3 is a lowered intensity or the neutral, and we're not going to do that today, so not today. A shade, and then a not quite white or an almost black, which means it's white with just a teeny tiny bit of the color, or black with just a teeny tiny bit of the color. It's very important that you choose one or the other, but not both. So I'm gonna start with yellow. So I said reset. That means throw away your old piece of magazine paper. That's why you didn't put very much paint on there. Get a new piece of magazine paper, and you are going to need yellow, a tiny bit of black, and a tiny bit of white. Make sure you wash your brush really well. So notice you can see I'm hitting it against the bottom of the cup. Several people at the table can share a cup. When your water gets muddy, so will your color. And then I'm gonna blot my paintbrush. When the blotting area comes out free and clean of any color, then you know your paintbrush is clean. The first thing that it says, space number 1, asks us to create the pure color. Well, today your goal is to get all your primaries done. So you want to take the yellow and you want to paint yellow in the space, going all the way up to and including the black line, just like we did with our value scales. Now you can see the number 1 through it because yellow has very low pigment density. So it may actually take 1 or more applications for the yellow to become completely opaque. But once you start mixing things with it, then it will get more opaque. So the number 2 is to create a tint. When you create a tint, you'll take some of your yellow, put it down here, and some of your white and mix them together. Notice that I'm gonna turn my brush over. I'm gonna go in different directions. I'm not swirling it. I'm not trying to make bubbles. I'm just mixing it. And it got somewhat lighter. If you want, you can add a little bit more white, and then you're good to go. And the reason why that didn't happen correctly was because I didn't start with white. Okay, see how it's very much the same? Watch this. Because remember, the always, always, always mix dark into light. Well, yellow is slightly darker than white. So if I start with white and pick up enough to paint the whole area and add in a small amount of yellow, then you'll see that you get a completely different color. It's much lighter. More like lemon sherbet or something. So that goes there. And then I'm gonna paint section number 2. And you'll see that it's much more opaque, and that's because the white adds a little bit more pigment into it. And we're going all the way up to and including our black line very neatly with our color. Notice I was using the right angle of the brush to help me get into the corners, letting the brush help me paint. That's important. Next thing we are going to do, we're skipping number 3 because number 3 is a neutral, and we're gonna do a shade, and then we're gonna do a not quite white or an almost black. I think I wanna do a not quite white, so I'm actually gonna skip and do number 5. I am literally going to rinse my brush, take the remaining white that is there. Notice that I'm blotting my brush to get the excess water off and make sure it's clean. The remaining white with a little tiny bit of yellow, I'm just gonna mix it together. Notice it's even whiter, even lighter yellow than the one before. And then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna paint my number 5 section with my not quite white. Now this brush is almost too big to do this, but not completely. I'm gonna turn my paper and use the angles of the brush to help me get that completely covered and painting neatly. So now I have painted my pure hue, my tint, and a not quite white. Next up is a shade. When you're painting yellow, and this is the reason why I wanted to demonstrate yellow, when you mix black into it, you don't end up with something that we could describe as a yellow. it's actually going to go more like an army green. So in this case, we start with the lighter color, and we add a small amount, and you'll see that I'm just going to use the tiniest little corner of black, and it's going to make a big difference. And you'll also see that the yellow is going to go to more like an army green color. That is the correct, this is the correct result for when you put black into yellow. And that's dark, yes it is, but it could go a little darker because we want to be a little dramatic. So we want to make sure we get a good one. Notice that I'm flipping my brush over and really like mixing it completely on my paper. That way I don't get a streaky application on my page. Number 4 space is the shade. And you can see that it's going to be a lot more opaque right from the very get-go. And you've got a weird, funky sort of army green look, which is appropriate and correct. So this process of painting the pure hue that comes straight out of the bottle, the tint, either an almost white or a not quite white or an almost black, and a shade, you're going to complete that process for yellow, cyan, and magenta today. If you guys get that far, I'm happy. If you want to go further, may I suggest you do oranges next. Mix enough orange to paint all of this section, and then the red-orange section and the yellow-orange section. So make a whole lot of orange, and it's okay for you to work with a partner so that you guys are going there. So start with a bunch of orange, and then you guys can start manipulating it. Have a great day. I'll see you on Tuesday.